In this video, we will be reviewing 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, directed by Nia DaCosta. I have a very special guest, Dylan. He's back. He's an old friend of the channel, of course, my old co-host for the lunch table.
Glad to be back.
Glad to have you. It's so awesome to finally be talking about this. We've been waiting so long for, well, actually not really long.
And this is our first review of the year, too.
First review of the year. Yeah, I mean, I've been glazing 28 for some time now, so I'm a big fan of what they're doing. So without further ado, everybody, let's get right into it. This will be straight up spoiler. So what did you think overall of 28 Years Later, Bone Temple?
Well, Nia DaCosta kind of went in a different direction as Danny Boyle, but I think I still appreciate it nonetheless. It does still have that cinematic flair that we saw in the first 28 Years movie, but I think it's more narrative driven in this one, whereas the previous one felt more of a exposition and more of like a survivor horror. This one definitely is character motivated, and we see that. And I actually thought it would be more focused on Nelson's character, which I mean it was, but I thought it would be more of a kind of like going into his origins and how he kind of like created the Bone Temple. But it was actually, I think it felt more focused on the Jimmies, which was nonetheless didn't make it a bad movie because I loved all the characters in it. And I love the side plot with Samson as well, and how that kind of like evolves into a bigger plot line down the road. But yeah, what do you think of it?
Sure. I thought that it was gonna be more revolved around Spike, and you know, we've seen more of the villains in this movie rather than Spike. Spike was just like on the side, terrified all the time, and again, the actor who plays Spike, such a phenomenal like young actor, as Danny Boyle and Alex Garland said previously, and you know, it is true. But also who's really great is the actor who plays Samson, and we get a lot of Samson here, and they do new stuff here that I thought wasn't possible. And I don't know whose idea. It probably was Alex Garland's idea, but I'm just saying, like, Nia DaCosta, I think she, in her direction, pulled it off wonderfully. Like the fact that we see the perspective of an infected, we see that they're actually looking at regular people as these sort of demons or wraiths is absolutely crazy. So it kind of gives, there's no accountability to killing these people. And it also makes it even more terrifying because it's like, okay, I'm infected, I'm fucked up in the head, whatever, but I'm killing these demons. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the scarecrow toxin in a way.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and so the Jimmies were awesome, but I liked more the scenes with Ralph Fiennes, Kelson, and Samson. I thought so many. You were chuckling sometimes because they had so many like nice friendship moments.
It was so like buddy cop almost.
Yeah, and it was funny because like they're chilling and Samson got his dick out and they're just like this.
It was like
chilling.
our like San Diego video back in the day.
Oh, we should have had our dick out and we're like this in the bed.
Okay, would have got more views. But,
right.
No, but it was cool. Yeah, like seeing that perspective. It's nice to see like a bit of humor thrown into these kinds of movies because they're very gore heavy sometimes, and they're very, you know, you try to push for the horror element, but it's nice when directors kind of add their own little spin on little things.
Yeah.
And seeing a kind of like almost like My Neighbor Totoro vibe with Samson was kind of like funny at times, but and also kind of sweet because you think half the time it's I mean it's also scary because like half the time you think he's gonna kill Nelson.
He's gonna like he's
gonna jump at him or something, and you know like, that's what you kind of expect.
Right.
But it was kind of sweet, and yeah, like I said, it kind of like adds something to this universe now where we kind of see Nelson has almost like discovered almost like a treatment.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, you brought up a good point where I definitely can feel the shift of directors, and I actually think that'll be a really wise move going forward with like other franchises. I mean, they kind of do that already, but like for example, Dune. It would be interesting to see like what if Denis doesn't direct the third one or whatever, which I want him to, but it's like I wonder if you give it to somebody else, how would they handle it? And Nia DaCosta, you know, the Marvels left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, but I thought Candyman was great, and I definitely trusted her with this movie. And I think this is the bread and butter of her filmography, is like the horror aspect. Yeah, and I think she did a really great job. The cinematography as well is different. This time it's 239:1 instead of 276:1, and I think that was a choice just from the cinematographer, but also Nia DaCosta. And I think they did a great job, even if it doesn't look shitty, because that's kind of like a trademark of like 28 Days. Even to some extent, Weeks was kind of like that, where it looked really grainy. This one, I noticed where there was beautiful vista shots, but a lot of the times when they were like turning the camera, it was kind of rough tracking, and it gave off this quality of like, just tension, or like you feel kind of nervous, like something's uneasy. And then a lot of doggy cam shots with Samson. They did some of that, and 28 years
also,
later,
there was also like scenes where like trains were passing by. There was like a lot of scenery
and the sound effects too. With that. Yeah, like I definitely like what she did with this, and it's interesting because you could keep, because the camera is the character to me as well. And it's like you could keep some of those elements, but they polished it a little bit. And I don't know, it felt like it's still in the same universe, which I was glad about that, because I was seeing the trailer. I was like, oh my God, this looks so clean. I love the grittiness and shakiness of 28 franchise. And I think that like the cinematographer and Nia DaCosta did a great job. But what did you think of the Jimmies, since they played such a pivotal role? What did you think of like the Jimmies in general?
Yeah, well, I mean, they were definitely at the forefront of the film. It's very focused on them a lot of the times. And well, I mean, like you said, Spike isn't the focus of this movie. I feel like the last movie was more his perspective.
Right.
I feel like this one was more through the lens of Nelson and
Samson.
Jimmy.
Or Jimmy. Yeah.
I call him Jimmy Prime, but
yeah.
Jack O'Connell's Jimmy.
Right.
But yeah, it was it definitely gave off a kind of like Children of the Corn vibe.
Yeah, that's
very
true.
heavily. That's what was going through my mind half the time, because you feel like it's like this almost like indoctrination, and the Jimmies are very young too, so it's like you're kind of like bringing them early on and like indoctrinating into this like false religion. And it's interesting to me because it had very like theological motif.
Yeah, go into that. Yeah,
because like Jimmy, of course, like as we saw in the first movie, he was the son of a pastor. And he probably had some very negative upbringings, which kind of like affected him later on. And that it's just interesting, like his childhood mindset affects him as an adult, because you have him dressing up the Jimmies like Teletubbies, and they do like that little Teletubby dance, which I thought was funny.
That was a good scene.
But they're very like childish, but they do very like gruesome things, like Children of the Corn did.
Right.
But yeah, it's like it's interesting to me like how this world kind of like reinvented religion around that. And it's funny because like you see also Nelson's perspective, and his story is more like a more scientific approach to this. So it's almost like a like science versus like theology, like clash of tones. But what did you think?
Yeah, you mentioned in our discussion before this video, you mentioned something about like how the Jimmies are in a way the de-evolution of humanity, whereas Samson is the evolution. And and could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, as we saw, like of course Nelson was treating Samson, and it wasn't even like through like he wanted to experiment and see. It was almost kind of like a familial love, like he was caring for Samson the whole time. Like he really like cared. Like he even said like you look like a Samson. He didn't just like call him like infected one or subject one or something.
Or like Blueberry or Benjamin.
yeah, like he gave him an actual name, and then through that love, he kind of like almost like restores his humanity. He talks to him like a normal person probably wouldn't like talk to an infected person, but like, he like talks to him regularly, and he even like he was very trusting in this movie that he even like took a nap. And like,
shit, it got me fucked up.
I was sweating the whole time. But yeah, and then through that care and humanity, he slowly brings his mindset back to the point where like Samson brings back his memories, and he starts to talk again. And yeah, I think at the end of the movie, he even like thanks like Nelson for like all the things he did for him.
That was beautiful.
And then you see the Jimmies are like the foil of that, where they just regress into these very almost like tribal like state of minds.
Yeah, and it's Kelson. It's weird because it's like he is sort of this fatherly figure, or he gives off this tone and vibe, but also he gives off like the vibe of a great doctor, of a doctor who's genuinely trying to help their patient. And of course, in the previous movie, he tried to help Jodie Comer's character, Isla, but this time, like trying to help out Samson. There was something that was really endearing about it, and I honestly thought it was beautiful. And but I wanted to see more. I'm sure we're gonna see more in a third movie, which I don't know when they're going to announce that. I'm pretty sure it's greenlit because I think now they went over they got their money back. But yeah, now what's weird to me about this movie, but I still thought it was fun. But we spent a lot of time, and there's this barn house, and they basically like not execute but torture these people within the barn house, and we spend like a good amount of time there. And that's the one thing about this movie. It doesn't feel like you're traveling all over. It feels very secluded in like this one perimeter. I don't know if that's a net negative or like a net positive, but it's less ideas to bounce off of, I guess. Keep it simple. And
Well, the first one felt more like you were like running and surviving, whereas this one
right.
felt you were more in the specific. You were more with.
Right.
You were more safe with the characters, whereas if you were in the forest, you kind of felt the isolation was like a threat in a way.
And it's been a long time since, when 28 years came out. It's been so long after
Right.
28 weeks later. So I guess that's why it felt like a new reintroduction, which is great. Now one thing I would say is like the score. I wasn't a big fan of the score. I really liked the Young Father score. I thought that it was really strange, but banger after banger. Like you could literally listen to any song and just have it like on your phone.
Well,
And
dude obviously has a Duran Duran fetish.
well, yeah. So you got like 3 Duran Duran songs. There is a sequence towards the end which I thought was phenomenal, and that is on the poster. If you guys see the poster with Ralph Fiennes' character, that sequence was so badass. I loved it so much.
I thought I was at an Iron Maiden concert. I feel
Yeah.
like I paid money for like they were back on tour.
Yeah, he was giving them a show. I mean that was amazing. Ralph Fiennes, phenomenal job.
You can tell he had fun filming that.
Oh yeah. And just the style, like the aesthetic of that too, like how he was dressed and shit like that. It definitely was fucking death metal. I thought in the trailers what would happen was he was infected and he found like some cure or some shit like that, and it made him kind of like this controller or leader. But it turned out it was just like a performance at the end of the day, which I think that's a testament to spirituality in human beings. And I'm kind of glad that they didn't go to that route where it's like, I think it's much more skin deep rather than like surface level. Oh, let's have this bombastic shit with all these infected coming out. So it definitely felt at times like a stage play. I think that's what I was trying to really say. Like, it's not like, oh, we're jumping around different locations. It felt more like a stage play where we really get to live with these characters. Of course, there are infected. There's a good number of infected, but it isn't like 28 weeks later levels of infected.
Well, the infected were probably more of the threat in the first one, whereas these were probably the villains of this.
And that's smart.
Sequel. Yeah,
and that's really smart to do. And I mean, I think the third one, I hear it's going to be huge, and I hear it's probably going to be the longest too out of the 2 of them so far. So, but yeah, what did you think also of like the end?
Oh, it was beautiful. I mean, I love the twist that he kind of pulls, that Kelson pulls on Jimmy, because the whole thing with like the Nick, like they call him like Daddy Nick.
Yeah, Daddy or Saint Nick.
Like you really see like the twisted mind of Jimmy in this whole movie.
Right.
And it kind of like almost like gave me like the sense of like false prophets in a way. Because at the same time, like you're dealing with Jimmy, but you're also dealing with Samson, who also gets overturned by the other infected because they start sensing the humanity back in him. So I thought that was an interesting like motif going on. But yeah, I like the twist that he kind of like pulls on Jimmy at the last moment, where he's like, "Oh well, I need a sacrifice. it really like plays on like faith a lot of
Right.
times, like faith versus like morality.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, it was kind of tragic that unfortunately Kelson had to die in this one.
Yeah, I mean, he's a doctor, so he knows like he can't make it past this. But I was hoping that they would do like some Deus Ex Machina move in order for him to survive, because I loved Kelson.
Right. But if you're talking about the ending,
yeah,
then yeah, we gotta talk about that real quick.
Yeah, so guess who comes back? Cillian Murphy's Jim, and he has a daughter, but there's no sign of Selena. And so I'm wondering, is Selena dead? But that also makes the canon, I mean, that retcons the comics. If you guys are like deep in the trenches with 28, then you would know that Selena falls in love with this guy named Cliff or something like that. So that's more.
I'm sure they'll probably go into more of what happened with them in the next or the final film of the trilogy, because we have to know like where he was like this whole time.
Yeah, well, I'm confused because and you guys let me know, but wasn't he in Finland or something? There was like this Finnish jet plane that flew by, and then it's like hopeful. It's like, oh, okay, they're rescued, but for some reason they're around that same territory.
Yeah, he's with the Metakain this whole time.
He's with the Metakain.
Pandora.
Yeah, he's hiding from the Ash people. Yeah, that was kind of weird, because I was like, oh god, I thought so. He's not safe, and they're living an isolated life, which is a beautiful vista around that area, and I think there's an abundance of fruit. Yeah, but then all of a sudden, because of that, due to the end, where Jimmy Inc., which is Erin Kellyman's character, you guys would know her from The Falcon and Winter Soldier, she partners up with Spike, and they kind of become buddy-buddy, and they flee the Bone Temple, which that Bone Temple now is going to be a spirit Halloween, because that Bone Temple is long gone, right? And so they flee, and they kind of go into the vicinity of Jim's house, and there's like a good amount of infected chasing them.
And the song is playing too.
Yes, in A House in a Heartbeat.
As soon as I heard, I was like, oh!
And the first,
I was like Samson. I was like,
yeah, and A House in a Heartbeat plays from the first movie, and I was really hoping we get like a running scene.
That's what I thought we were gonna get.
Yeah, and then I was hoping that they'll go inside the house, and that's where it ends.
And Spike trips the bitch over, and then he's like,
but I mean, so it looks like Killian's character will help them, and they'll probably go on a journey. Now, however, what's going to happen with Samson? Because Samson seems less foggy, although I do question, like, how long will that symptom of, like, the medicine that he's taking, how long would that take to be declogged, and he's, seeing everything clearly. But also, we see from 28 weeks later that the spit from an infected, or if you're like, kind of immune, can still affect a regular person. So does that apply with Samson? And then also, okay, so it's a psychosis, they said. So Kelson figures out, we could probably treat the psychosis, which makes sense, rage, whatever. But is it like an actual cure? Will Samson track his way to Spike somehow, and like it'll be kind of like a Grogu Mandalorian situation where Samson is there protecting them? I could definitely see like this ragtag. I mean, it'll be really weird with Samson's dick out while he's walking, but what would happen with that?
Or because he also carried like Nelson's body at the end, so I was wondering, like, is he gonna like give him a burial, like all that research that's there like underneath his bunker, is that gonna go somewhere?
Well, that's the question though, is like, okay, I'd imagine Samson isn't going to be like some engineer after becoming like,
right. Yeah.
And probably from the trauma of staying in that foggy haze for so long, he probably would even struggle to like say some things, right?
But, I mean, you could have begged the question, like, could he apply what was done to him to other infected with the morphine?
Oh,
Does it translate? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Or would he? Well, that's another thing too, because if you kind of want to go more complex with it, does he actually care? or if
Right.
you want to add nuance, is there
Yeah.
like a point to all of this? Because there was like a through line where they always say like it's all fucked. They said that in 2 movies. They haven't said it in 28 years later, which I was disappointed. So I'm wondering, is that the same mindset going into the third one? Is it all fucked, or do we just make do with what we have? So I would, although you could really make it cheesy though with Samson. I don't want Samson to be like Lavoisier or something like that, where he's speaking, or like a whatever.
I mean, Cillian Murphy's character could also take on the research.
That's
too.
another thing. He was teaching his daughter history. I was like, oh wow, so you brushed up on your history being a bike messenger, but now you brushed up in your history.
He was teaching her about the Venezuelan bombing.
The Venezuelans, yeah, that's what they need. Samson is probably Delta Force. Yeah, that scene where he grabs the guy so easy. And that's another thing. That was kind of like an Easter egg in a way, because he's eating the guy's brains like zombies.
Yeah.
They name drop zombies as well, which is cool. So yeah, all in all, I thought. Well, also, I'm disappointed we didn't see like a flashback, or like at least a brief scene with Aaron Taylor Johnson's character. Like, I wonder, did he go out to look for Spike
Just like
at
an
all?
update with like the community, the island community.
Yeah, like what's going on with that? Well, we probably will see them in the third movie. I'd reckon we'd see them there, because now it seems. Also, what will the stakes be too? Like, are they going to do something with this cure, quote unquote cure? What are the implications for like the global scale? Like, how would people know about this? You know what I actually imagine, because they were rescued by like this Finnish jet, or at least seen by the Finnish jet, maybe Killian has some connection. If maybe a radio too, but they can't do nothing, but maybe he says like, hey, look,
well, the rest of the world is still normal, right? It's just
well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, oh, you cannot leave, you have to stay isolated here. But he calls and he's like, hey, look, there's this guy, his dick is out, you want to see? And then it's like, yeah, let's check it out. Let's check it out. So but all in all, I thought this movie exceeded my expectations. I was a little worried at first, because I am a big fan of Danny Boyle's direction in general, Slumdog Millionaire, yada yada yada. And his editing style, and his like Anthony Dal Mantle, I thought did a great job in the cinematography. So I was kind of worried, especially after the Marvels. But let me tell you, I think this is a great sequel to. And now people are kind of 50-50 on 28 years later. But all in all, I thought this was a great sequel to that. And actually, I think this is my favorite. Like, I think now this is my new favorite out of the whole franchise. It was really interesting, really well shot. You weren't bored. Like, I wasn't bored watching it whatsoever. I was really invested. The cinematography, the vistas were amazing. The coloration as well. Let me get some more of your thoughts.
I mean, if I had any critiques for the movie, I kind of wish we had spent a little more time with some of the characters. I mean, I'm glad that we kind of had a moment with Samson, and we kind of like got a glimpse of his like previous humanity before the infection. I kind of wish we had seen more of Nelson, because it was kind of like hinted. I mean, they showed like pictures of his family.
Yeah, more backstory.
I mean, a little more back, like why he likes Duran Duran. A little bit more of that. Because we had like hinted his backstory in the first movie. I thought they would go more into it, like I said in this one. Maybe they'll talk more about it in the next movie.
That's another thing. Like, they could have took more time making the medicine. Like, how the fuck did you figure that out?
Yeah, how he got like the whole bunker.
Yeah, we got the whole world. What the fuck?
I mean, some of the Jimmies too. I wish we could have spent more time with, for like how they got recruited. Because I feel like some of them, like Jimmy Inc., we got to know more, but then some of them were like throwaways. So maybe like more time with that, and like Spike too.
Sure.
I feel like he was kind of like
sidelined
on in this movie, and yeah, maybe like an update on like the island community, what if they've been looking for Spike.
Sure.
But overall, I enjoyed it. I mean, unlike you, I kind of enjoyed the soundtrack a little bit, even like the little Radiohead throw in there.
No, sure. I'm just saying, like the original, like Hildy Gorickson, or Gorendaughter. I'm butchering that name. I just,
I think it was appropriate for the scenes that we had. I love the Iron Maiden ending with Ralph. I thought that was beautifully shot.
That was cool. That was really
if you're talking about cinematography, that was beautifully shot.
And the editing. No, like the editing is great here.
Clean, very clean.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my only critiques. But yeah, I have to say, I think Of the trilogy and maybe of the franchise, this is probably my favorite as well.
Yeah.
Just 'cause it played with very interesting motifs that I haven't seen. Well, maybe in Walking Dead, but very loosely.
Yeah.
But I think they go more heavy, like into like theology and kind of like
That was cool.
morality in
Yeah.
this, which I really enjoyed.
That is cool.
Because it's like rare that you see like humanity like being the villains in these kind of movies.
Right.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Well, Walking Dead, but
it's more like the military sometimes. Like in these kind of movies, they make the military.
Right.
These are like civilian people.
Right.
But yeah, like in The Walking Dead, they've kind of like played with it.
Yeah.
But I really like how they did it in this one.
Yeah, no, I do too. Because it's like more of an experiment because you have the Jimmies. You don't have
Right.
like society as whole, like this one motherfucker is representing society. No, it's like the Jimmies and they're like the worst of it.
Right. And it's
you
very
know?
like small scale. It's like like Lord of the Flies almost.
Yeah.
You have a microcosm of like society in this
Mhm.
little group and how it digresses
Sure.
when you've been exposed to this kind of world.
Sure. Yeah, and again, and the acting was great here. So
Hands down. Yeah, Ralph Fiennes, Jack O'Connell, I
love
loved
Ralph
as
Fiennes. Yeah.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
The actor plays Spike as well. I thought he was really good in this one.
What would you rate 28 years later, The Bone Temple?
28 out of 30.
No, that's good. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I'd probably give it a high mark. I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10. How about you?
I'd give it a 9 out of 10 too. I liked it a lot. Guys, definitely check it out. I mean, this is a spoiler review, but if you've seen it already, let us know what you think in the comments below. I am Smiley. This is my friend Dylan, and I'll catch you in the next time. See you guys.
Later, guys.